going to take our seats. Go ahead. We're going to do this from stools. I gave this talk about 3 weeks ago in Georgia to some food animal veterinarians and some agriculture people, and it went very well. We haven't done this together before, but Scott asked some ages there earlier. We're going to talk about generations, and we all talk about millennials, and the negative connotation typically is what sticks out. But so the millennial generation starts about 1980-81. Who is 1980-81 and younger? Who is older? Gen X, boomers. So we got a pretty solid mix, but the millennials outnumber the Xers and boomers, wouldn't you say?
Yep.
That's awesome. And so part of the goal of this talk, and we'll actually, I'll get to that. There we go. So bridging the generations in agriculture. So I gave this talk, and it wasn't just veterinarians, but across the industry in Georgia, beef producers. But, the goal of this talk is to, end this tug of war, and we want to talk about the strengths and weaknesses of all generations. And as Dr. Ty came 4 years ago, we've had lots of experiences back and forth to get to where we are today, all the way from an associate straight out of school to now a partner. And we've had our struggles. We've had intense conversations, and we're going to get up here and talk about it. What do you think of that? He's going to call me names? No. But we want everybody in this room to have an open mind about your own generation and what your own generation's strengths and weaknesses, not just the millennials. And we want to talk about, interject some of our stories and what we experienced, because we think it is valuable to you guys. Again, it's stuff that, I don't know, has anybody been to a talk like this where you've had an Xer and a boomer or a millennial on stage talking about each other's weaknesses? So the goal is to end this tug of war to turn into a locomotive. And we're doing that. We're doing that, and we want to maybe help you figure out how to do that. So the generational differences, the reason there are the generational differences, it has nothing to do with the individual. It has everything to do with the time you were raised. All the generational events that you went through, did you go through the Depression and did you save everything you had because you were worried you'd never have it again? Did you go through the Vietnam War? Did you go through the 70s and 80s, or like even for me, and my dad went broke in agriculture and paid 20% interest. I tell young people today, can you imagine paying 20% interest? I don't think any of us can. I think the highest I've paid is maybe 8 or 9, and Greg Myers and I got out of vet school, I feel like, somewhere in there. But the reason we are who we are is because of the generational events and the technologies that have advanced us to get there. Now, it produces our habits and who we are and what we do and how we interact and how we buy and all these things that we do, but that's why they are the generational differences. So, the other key reason we're talking about this is the millennials are gonna be the largest part of our society. As that slide says, is by 2020 they will make up 1/4 of the American population. 1/4. What's even crazier is they'll make up 1/3 of the workforce by 2020. A third of the workforce by 2025, and then will be 3/4 of our workforce. I think that slide is actually wrong. It's 1/3 of 2020, and then 3/4 of the workforce by 2025. So by 2025, they'll make up 3/4 of our workforce. So if you're an Xer or a boomer in this room, you better figure out how to work with these folks and how to attract the rockstar millennials, like what we've done with people in our shop, right, Ty? So this part of our experience is we meet at 7 a.m. every Monday morning in our office to go meet with our veterinarians. In this last 2 years, I've had 2 millennials sitting across the desk from me, and I bring up the word millennial, and those 2 millennials would just have this look of hate and pissed offness at me when I said it. And I tell them, hey, I went back to that generational slide. It is what it is. No, you're not typical millennials, but you're still a millennial. You still have these habits, these tendencies, just like I do as an Xer. Good, bad, whatever it is. And I developed this slide because those two, Nick and Ty, hate true, not typical millennials, the bad millennials. So with that, I'm going to let Dr. Ty say a few words on that.
I think the biggest reason a lot of us, or at least Nick and I, tend to have that instant grinding your teeth anger when somebody says that is, when you hear the word millennial anymore, I don't think there's ever been a positive annotation with it. It's always negative. It's always, millennials this, millennials that, and then you look at what a typical millennial is on TV, and I am not that guy. I am not, some of those things that they talk about. And I feel like me and a lot of the guys, I hang out with my friends and my coworkers and people I went to vet school with. We're cut from a different cloth as far as some of those that may be building that reputation for us. And so I think it's extremely important that whenever you're talking to a millennial, or if you decide to use that word, just be really careful. Because we just, it's, when you try to lump, millions of people into a certain subset, there's always going to be outliers. And, Dr. Nick and I, and as well as, every millennial in here that I can see, I know just about most of you, and, we're different. We're going to be the ones that are hopefully leading our generation to maybe bring some positive back to it. But we're going to have a voice to do that. And, the ag industry and the veterinary community is a way for us to do that. So,
absolutely. And so then, as I often tell people that really hate millennials, is rock star millennials are better than us at many things, and you have to think about what they're better than us at, and we got to capitalize on it. So rock star millennials crave. These are the things that rock star millennials crave. Now, in the ag industry, the veterinary space, flexible working hours can be a challenge. But I think if you're an innovative thinker, you can maybe work a way around what does that mean to them, and asking them what does that look like and how can you make that work. You may or may not be able to make it work. Dr. Ty is a millennial, but he's a workhorse, and hours mean nothing to him. Flexible hours is he's going to work until the work's done, like a boomer or an Xer. But there's probably some rockstar millennials that maybe there's some opportunity that you need to work on that. Communication is a big thing, and we have to be able to communicate to these people.
I think on the flexible work hours, there isn't a single one of us in here that even if we call ourselves the hardest worker, there ain't a single person in here that works like our grandparents did. That when they were getting up at 4 or 5 in the morning and milking cows and running equipment that wasn't hydraulic or things like that. And that's a generational thing. Mm-hmm. We're built by that generation, so we still work hard. So our generation compared to some of the others, there is more capability of having a little flexible hours, and so we've gotten used to that. And so probably most of us aren't going to be quite used to working the extended hours or late hours that some of the boomers and Xers are, just from the generation we're in. There's a lot that do, but it'll take a little patience for that, because it doesn't mean that some of them are lazy. What it just means is it's going to take a little time to get used to, work not just always 8 to 5. We got to take care of our people, and that's how we do it.
Yeah. So communication, mentorship. We'll talk about those things a little bit more. Transparent path to advancement. This is a key. It took me a while to figure this out. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Choices and control. They want to be a part of those decisions. Purpose and culture. I think that generation has changed businesses today. They're changing how businesses are marketing today because they want to buy with a purpose. They want to be a part of a culture. And it's very important. Boomers and Xers weaknesses. So for the boomers and Xers, raise your hand again. Come on, show me who you are. I am. This is our problems, okay? Nobody ever talks about it, we all talk about the millennials, they don't work, they're lazy, they want to drink $5 coffee and hang out, and, blah, blah, blah. But these are our problems. The top one is number one. We suck at communication. You know why we suck at communication? Because nobody ever told us to get up and go to work. It was just expected. Shut up, go to work, and do the job. No explanation ever. Just shut up and do the work, right? It's what it was. It's how we were handled. So a millennial, they want to know more, and we're like, shut up and do the work. That approach does not work. It just doesn't work. They want to talk about it. They want communication. Building trust. We aren't the best at building trust because of that. Because we just want them to be quiet, go to work. Communication builds trust, and without it, you're going to not have trust. Building culture and purposeful leadership. That once you start doing this sort of stuff, the millennials just blossom and do crazy, crazy things. Change and killing sacred cows. We all know what that means. In other words, if your grandpa farmed this way or ranched this way, well, we've always done it this way. Well, we're going to just keep doing it this way. Or like if Ty had that mentality, his dad was a veterinarian, and he'd still be doing the things the way his dad did things. But we can't be afraid to change and kill sacred cows. It's a must. It's a must do. Ty, what do you? In terms of that, we've got on there examples of some of my failures in these areas.
So, we can talk for just in general and among a lot of this and how important each one is. But just starting from the top, communication. I think where Nels and I, when we started the process, everyone knows when there's, unless it's a complete buyout, and even then, there's going to be conversations that are going to be awkward and difficult, always. Especially when you're an associate buying in to an existing practice where the owner's not leaving. And so there's going to be a bounce and a struggle there about what the expectations are. And you're going to have to sit down and talk about how much are we buying and why is it that much? Because we're going to wonder why. All natural questions, and sometimes it may not seem appropriate to ask those, but at the same time, for us to think into the future about where we're going to be in a clinic, we want to know, if we're going to be buying in, and so those can be really difficult to have, and most people are going to tend to want to try to avoid those.
Yeah, from an extra roomer standpoint, as we work through our process, a millennial wants to know and they want a plan. And it can be a downfall because they want to maybe plan 30 years from now. And, from our standpoint, we're like, you can't do that. But, we just did what we did and drove hard and grinded it out and didn't worry about 10, 20, 30 years from now. We just accepted it. But Dr. Ty and the other Dr. Ty's, as we work through this, that's what I figured out is he wants to know. And I actually figured it out before the buying process. It was actually when he was just even thinking about staying and partnering in, wasn't it? Yeah. And there were some issues in the practice that if I wouldn't have made those changes, he was going to go. And I knew that, and I figured it out. And finally, he was worried about who he was going to, be his leader, who he'd have to answer to. And I said, Ty, you're going to answer to me. And we were on the phone, and it's like just gasp of air just went out of his mouth. He's like, oh. Thank God.
Part of that was there. Who else was in the practice? There were some other factors going on in the practice there that was going to create long term. I wasn't going to stay there or be there, and that's when we finally talked about it. Mm-hmm. And so there's just always going to be situations like that. It could be a million different things. And you've got to sit down. You've got to be able to talk about it, and you've got to be able to do so in a manner where no one's getting offended. You just got to ask more and more questions. And for us, we failed at that pretty big several times. But what helped us too is we actually, brought someone in. We brought Dr. Nels in because he's been through that and helped talk us through some things, and it was really good. And so we got the job done. we're getting better at it every day. So
We will talk more about that again, but I want you to visit with them about, other Boomer Xer failures from your classmates that you hear.
So like along building trust, I've got a classmate that's, working on buying in and has been for about 2 years now. I actually know a couple of them where the buying in process has gotten really extended, and a lot of that is because sometimes how some businesses are run, there's a lot of personal things run through, and it creates an absolute accounting nightmare. They can't even find an evaluation because, the way he started his practice, it was his practice, you do it however you want to do it. Not thinking down the road that someone wants to buy in and be a part of it, and now how do you even become a part of that?
Yeah, they don't want a part of your personal expense.
And he wants her to buy in, and they cannot make it happen because they can't figure this thing out. And so always planning for that future of what if someone comes in here, what if we have someone that is going to really help just grow this practice and be an integral part. I gotta set things up so that can work. And Nels was really good about that. I mean, it was pretty quick and easy, but several classmates, I mean, it makes it really, really difficult.
Yeah, if you're, Mayor's might hit on that a little bit, but that accounting side, we all are guilty of running personal expenses through a business. But yeah, when it comes to a partnership, somebody buying in or somebody selling or whatever, that can be a real bad mistake. And then, you sit down and count and they're going to back it out and do add backs and blah, blah, blah. But if that person that's buying in is looking at that, they're starting to become distrustful in the process from the get-go. If you're having to do tons of add backs, they're like, my God, this guy, floated his boat outside of here.
Yeah.
On the clinic expense.
And, along those same lines, from my standpoint, as anyone who's younger who may be buying in to an existing practice, there's evaluations that have to be done, and as a potential future employer, you're going, how do we find out how this is evaluated? And, there's like, Nels knew he bought and sold that thing because of a previous partner 3 times. He bought and sold. You bought, sold, and bought back. And so this is his 4th time going through the process. And he knew how it had been done and how everything was. And his mind and track was set, all right, this is how it needs to be done. And for me, starting out when he was, hey, we're going to do it this way. And of course, I was putting the brakes on. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? I mean, shouldn't we like maybe do this over here, or maybe do it another way, or third party type of thing, and that, without thinking about it, initially it's like, I don't know, that seems kind of strange to me, and so keep in mind when they're coming in, they aren't going to have any clue. They don't know, and part of building that trust, if you're the owner, is just walk them through it like a little kid starting to walk the first time. I mean, you got to take baby steps and just really nurse them along because they don't know, they're scared, it's a big deal, and you really just got to be patient and slow and just walk them through the process. And again, it comes down to explaining why, and let me show you, and just be open. You got to be open with everything, and that's huge, because if you're not, you got to explain why, because otherwise they're going to be sitting there thinking, well, why? So,
yeah, you've got to be extremely transparent. Because as Tyler's heard me I tell us to everybody, I have nothing to hide. You can look on my cell phone. I have gals that have my email passcodes. I don't care. Nothing to hide. Books, we have nothing to hide. Here's my books. Take a look. I don't care. There's no personal expenses. We're minimal. We run a straight, clean business. And that's how it's going to be. Change and killing sacred cows. So one thing we want to talk about there is I like to tell people that if you're doing something and somebody asks you why you're doing it and you don't have a good response of why we're doing this, you should probably look at that cow, and does that cow need to be killed? If we can't answer ourselves why, then you gotta relook at why, and maybe look at different options. Okay, you good?
So one thing on that, I was talking to Courtney about this the other night, and from Nels' shoes, or anybody else that's owned a practice, when you buy that thing and you start from the ground and you're in the trenches and you're making decisions, you're the guy making the decisions or the girl making the decisions every single day. You're responsible for everything. When it takes off and it does well, you're used. You get stuck in that, and you're every decision, even from what kind of drugs you're using. Some people get very into that, and from our point of view, coming in, we got to think about that they've built this thing and it's become successful, and a lot of that, it's not just because of them, they got people around them, but a lot of it's because of the decisions they've made. And so when you come in and want to change something, you can just watch. I mean, because in their mind, they're like, I've done it this way for a long time, and it's freaking worked. Why in the hell do you think you can come in here and change it? And from our perspective, it's not necessarily like, well, this is terrible, we need to do this, but that's the way it comes across. So you got to be really careful of how you approach things, because like they've done it. It's successful, or they wouldn't be there, and they wouldn't be having you buy in. It couldn't be that successful. I mean, it has to be fairly successful if they're offering you to buy in, and so you got to be really careful about how you approach those situations.
Yeah, that's tremendous words, and take those words home wisely, because the Xers and boomers sitting in this room are sitting here going, aren't you? You're not only shaking your head, you're going, amen, brother. But we, as Xers and boomers, we got to listen to them. Ty knows. I've been giving Ty more decision-making power for 4 years. And I mean, today he basically runs the day-to-day logistics. Sometimes I jump in and help move on because his brain is full and he's got 10 million things to do and he needs some backup, but we'll get to that actually. So Rockstar Millennial Challenges. So we went from Xers and boomers. Now we're going to talk about the millennials. And I want you to look at this slide if you're a millennial, and I want you to digest it. I don't want you to spit bullets at it. I just want you to think about if I am weak in any of those areas. And I will tell you, and I think the Xers and boomers in this room would say that the number one challenge of the millennial generation is patience. And if you will just think about patience and get over it and have more patience, you will win over that Xer or boomer that's trying to lead you. And it's not your fault. You've grown up with a handheld supercomputer in your hand. Us Xers and boomers, we can remember prior to computers. We can remember prior to any cell phone. We can remember prior to any of those. We remember in college when we didn't text about where the party was. We communicated face to face about where the party was every Friday or Wednesday. That was at Fort Hays State University. He's a brother Tiger too. There was a lot of beer drinking at Fort Hays State University. Respect and action. This is big, and I promise you these top 2 points. Did the Xers and boomers agree with all of those 5 points? What the top 2 are the most important? Don't be afraid to say yes or hold your hand up. Respect and action. So what I've talked to Ty about or other millennials about is you have to have patience. Just respect the process, which I think is the next slide. But and you rockstar millennials that are in the room, and if you're in this room, I know you're a rockstar millennial. You have respect. I know you have respect, but your impatience leads us Xers and boomers to believe you're disrespecting us. So those are 2 very key points, and out of these 5, I want you to really think deep and hard about those. Because I promise you, if you're in a practice with an Xer or boomer, those top 2, you might be driving that person crazy. You got any?
That I struggled with those the most through the entire process, and I had to remember that Nels had a partner, and that partnership, broke, and then, I tried to come right back in after that, and I'm like, all right, let's talk about this, and it's like, oh, geez, everything you've just been through, and that was the biggest thing, because let's keep going. I want to be bought in 5 years ago. I want to be, moving and climbing. And, it is disrespectful, especially in our situation where, there's so much happened in 2 years. And you got to think about those things, because it's their baby, whether you want to say it or not, whether you think you deserve or earn a right to buy in. They've been there when, started boots on the ground, and some of them, all of you in your business have put a tremendous amount of work and effort into it. So on our side, if you're coming in to be an associate, you need to be really careful about approaching those situations and use grace and kindness all the time and explain your thought process and be ready for them to say, now's not the time. And you got to respect that, and you got to give things time.
Yeah. And Ty's heard me say this, if you're going to ask a bold question, be ready for a bold answer, especially when time's not playing out right. And we had gone through a very, trying time in the clinic, and it was a literally emotional, trying time, one of the worst events in my life. And I wanted him partnered in, and he was hitched up to a wagon, pulling it like 2 ox and doing a great job. But, when people go through big tragic or emotional events or things in their life, inside or outside of the clinic, you got to let things process. You have to respect the process. You have to respect the emotional cycle that all humans go through in these processes. Because if you try to speed up that emotional process, it's probably not going to go very good. And that's hard when you're very impatient. And Ty, as a rockstar millennial, realized that, and he knows that he can be impatient as anybody can. I still would stress that I'm a halfway millennial in some of my thought processes, and I'm impatient too. So I don't think the impatience is necessarily just a millennial challenge. I think it's all of our challenges, because we can all get on our phone today, pull it out right now, and you can buy a freaking computer like in 2 seconds if you want. Buy now. You don't have to, Amazon is making us all click buttons to buy now, and it's over, and we get it all now. And we have it in a day, or if you live in Denver, you can have it in 2 hours. So we're all getting more impatient. Loyalty, back to the Amazon. The technology of today has made not even just millennials have poor loyalty, but I think we're all guilty of this. We're in Great Bend, Kansas, and I love Great Bend, and I'm an active supporter of Great Bend, and I tell people we got to reduce our Amazon purchasing. A good friend of mine works for the Big Brown for UPS, and he would tell you today that that's like 90% of the packages he ships in Great Bend that he delivers. And that's just crazy. But it creates this loyalty. Teamwork, teamwork in terms of what is millennials, the generation that I think in the veterinary world, I think most of you are good team players, but you get out in the software and the technology world or outside of our ag world, a lot of them want to work on their own. They want to work on their computer. They want to work on their own time. They don't want to work 8 to 5 as long as the project gets done, and they want to do it alone. And software and technology has allowed that to happen, and it's allowed it to actually flourish to a certain degree. If you want to check out a cool business, it's called Belay. They have 600 plus employees. They don't even own an office. 600 plus employees, they don't own an office, which I like that. If you could have that business, my buddy Mayers wants to rent an office, but that's crazy. Physically taxing work. Ty mentioned it, none of us work as hard as our grandparents, even us Xers, but it's my challenges with colleges today is all our colleges are teaching kids that they can sit behind a computer and the physically taxing work will be left to the peons or whatever, Well, these peons can be a plumber or an electrician and make more money than many of these new college grads. And we have to get back to letting them realize, hey, there is going to be some physically taxing work. Do you have any thoughts on that?
There's a lot of vet clinics around that are still a lot part of their business is built off of that. I mean, working calves and things like that. And, some of us sit around and go, oh, that's dead for veterinarians. No, it really isn't. You got an old guy, what's the average age of a rancher in Kansas? It's old. They don't want to do all that work. And where are the processing crews at? It's hard to find people that want to do that work. if the vet is willing to, strap the boots on and do the work, someone needs to do it. And not all those guys can do that. So don't be afraid. You'd be surprised how much service you can gain from that.
Okay, boomers and Xers must do. We must always explain the why. So we talked about that earlier in killing sacred cows. I'm telling you, if you're in a practice, these rock star millennials, they're wanting to know why. Why do I have to do this? To us, it's disrespectful, but you probably should be thinking about the whys in every single aspect of every single thing you do. And that's tough to do because we just do what we do, right? Xers and boomers, parents said, get your ass to work, and we went to work. We didn't ask any questions. My dad came home in 6th grade and said, I got a job for you. I said, okay, and I went to work. But they want to know why. And it's not a bad thing. It's probably a good thing most of the time. Sometimes they might question something. You're like, just shut up and go to work. But asking why never hurts. We need to help them understand why. Ty knows that in a lot of things I communicate on. How often do I tell the why?
All the time.
All the time. I want them to know exactly why we're doing everything. I want perspective. I want to fill their brain with all the perspective I can do. Sometimes it's probably overkill, but we got to give them perspective and the why. And if you do that, they'll probably respect the answer in the process, as long as it's legitimate. Now, if you don't give a good reason why, then they're probably going to think, well, we could do this differently. We must give routine feedback. We work really hard at this. I would still say boomers and Xers want routine feedback. Nobody wants their leader to pack up a year's worth of bad activity at your job and slam you in the face with it for the entire year's worth. Everybody wants routine feedback. If you're doing something wrong, we want to know now. You got any thoughts on any of those too?
Yeah, I'm big on that, and I think anybody in a service-driven industry, if you're good at what you're doing, especially at vet and ed, you're good at serving people. And the type of people that want to serve, they want feedback because they want to know if they're doing it right. And I think that's extremely important regardless. That's, we want to know.
Yeah. We must work to not waste their time. So we have to always remember, millennials were raised with a handheld supercomputer in their hand. Things happen very quickly for them. We're all getting there basically right behind them though. But their time, they value their time more than we do. Even Ty. Ty is an Xer when it comes to work. He values his time, but it's his time is work. My time is work. Our families take a backseat too much. We've got to change that. But most millennials, they want their time. They don't want us to waste their time. And so if you're giving them tasks to do that they don't see the value in and they don't know the why, they're not going to like it. We must help them cope and learn with failures. So I talk about this routinely is we have to help them learn how to fail. And Ty knows that my goal with him is I just give him a longer leash, but I'm gonna let him skid his knees pretty hard. I don't want to let him skid too hard because it might affect everything, but we got to let millennials understand failure is a wonderful thing. And we know why they all don't like failure. It's the every kid got a trophy mentality that the parents did to set them up to not like failure. It's not the millennials' fault. It's the parenting fault. Every kid got a trophy. They didn't. Hey, you still won in your own. You were awesome. You lost 3 games. Yeah. So failure's tough. And that goes back to the mentorship. You know why they want the mentorship? Because they don't want to fail. They do not want to fail. But we got to do a better job explaining to them, hey, dude, it's all right. If you fail and scrape hard, it's okay. Dr. Austin, he's not here. We just hired him. He hit a deer 2 days ago. He's probably scared shitless to call me. He called Ty first. Then he calls me. Nels, I hit a deer. I said, oh, that's all right. I said, you all right? Yeah, I'm good. I said, well, what about the pickup? But, it's not that he failed, but, we got to help him understand that it's okay. We're not gonna just blow you apart and smoke you to pieces because you failed. Now, if you're an Xer or a boomer and they fail and you're going to punch them in the face, not literally, but with your comments or where it might be, then you're going to make them more scared to fail.
So I don't know for other younger ones going through vet school. That my biggest pet peeve, what drove me nuts in vet school was, you all remember and noticed that whenever someone would ask a question, like a professor would ask a question, nobody'd raise their hand. And a lot of it wasn't because they didn't know the answer, but everyone's afraid to give the wrong answer. Or in clinics, you got your classmates that are sitting in the room because they don't want to go out and work on the dog or the cat because they're afraid they may do something that's wrong, or the clinician may, drive them out or say, hey, that's not how you're supposed to do that. I mean, our class was full of that. I wish I could have gone back and talked to first year students and said, get over that shit. You're going to make mistakes. You're a student. And everyone's sitting there like you're already supposed to know all the answers. And they're going to come out into practice doing the same thing. Afraid to fail. Or they don't want to work this case up because what if it dies in the clinic? If they can't go to K-State, if you're their only option, do something. Don't be afraid to go out on a limb. Don't be afraid to fail. I bet Nels can give you 50 quotes of some of the most successful people that has ever lived in the United States or the world, and they'll talk about their failures and how they failed. Some of them failed big.
Yeah.
So from our generation, don't be afraid to do that crap. You're going to make yourself better. You kill 2 dogs doing an enterotomy, don't quit. Do 5 more enterotomies. Do 10 more. Be honest and straightforward.
Yep.
Don't lie to your clients. I'm not saying that, but if they're running out of options, buck up and do something. We're in a great profession where we have the ability to do those things, and don't be afraid to fail. Who cares? There's no check mark how many animals die in your clinic because you were afraid to fail or because euthanize it. Don't do that.
With that, as Xers and boomers, again, our response to them telling us how they failed will dictate if they do that again for you or not, and it will scare them if you respond in a very bad way. And I've got one more story on that, and it's not Dr. Ty. It's Dr. Nick, and he was brand new at our practice, and I wish my wife was here. She could tell the story better. I can't remember. Did we have 1 cat die on the surgery table?
2.
Yes. Go ahead.
Poor Nick. It was literally like his first week, and the boss's cat came in from surgery, and they were doing surgery, and boom, that thing, cat under gas anesthesia.
And I always make them do the surgery. I will never do it. I want to put the pressure on them. So it's purposeful.
So, and I think that was, Karen and calls in, and they're crying, and Nels, cat. And the next day, I think it was the next day almost, they got another cat. And they put that one down, and everything went all right, and it went home and got a saddle thrombus. And it couldn't walk, and it was seizing, and Karen and the kids bring it in to Nick, and it's sitting there, and he went, oh my God, are you kidding? And Nels, man, it happens. Actually, I'm pretty sure he said something about Nick. Nick called him, and before he even said anything, he said, Nick, is my second cat dead? Nick said, yes. And I think Nell just started laughing. It's like, man, what are you going to do? It's not his fault. It happens. It couldn't happen to a better person.
Yeah. Yeah, the first one he called me, I'll never forget, I was sitting in front of the city hall, I had to do something down there. And Nels, we got a problem. What's that, Nick? Your cat is dead. Oh, well, what happened? Well, I think it was anesthesia or something. He didn't kill the cat, but it died on the table. And I think my response to him, though, I could have been like, what the hell? What did you do wrong? Why? And if you respond like that, it's gonna do bad things in that relationship. So, and the last one is we must foster respect between all generations and not animosity. And it took me a long time to get to this point, to be able to sit up here with Ty to do this. I started putting these slides together months ago, and then I had this idea to do this in Georgia, and it went over very well. But I got to this point because I was the Xer sitting there cussing the freaking millennials out every day. Like, who are these idiots? And then I started, attracting these cool millennials. I started figuring out, hey, there's some really good ones. And we got to get over this animosity part. We got to get over the fact that they're not all bad. There is about, I'd say, probably 20%, maybe more, probably more, that are complete rock stars, and they will take you places. Rockstar millennials are good at. We've got 15 minutes, Ty. These are things that they're good at, and I want you to think about these things so how you can capitalize on them. Not accepting the status quo, innovative thinkers, and I think they're innovative thinkers because of technology. You know, they can get on the phone and Google anything. Even as an Xer, I've gotten better at it, but you know, you can get on your phone and Google anything. You're talking to a millennial and you've got a question that they've already looked it up on Google while us Xers and boomers are still rolling it around in our brain. Innovative thinking, just so that pushing the envelope, that goes back to the why. They want to know why. And if we can't answer the why, they're going to push the envelope. Again, wanting to know why. Have that in there. Application of technology for solutions. We'll talk about that on the next slide, I think it is. So, opportunities to capitalize on millennial strengths. And this first one, give them projects to lead. And so, what I always think about here is when Dr. Ty was first to Great Bend. And that first summer we have a big blowout client appreciation party every summer, 200 plus people, and we've got our system down. And there's a lot of people, a lot of steaks. We've got good people cooking steaks, all the beer, all the booze you want, ice cream. We got ice. It's big, is it not? 40 by 60 tent, and it takes a lot of work. Porta potties, but we've done it long enough. We've got our system down. And Ty was brand new, and I'll never forget we were in that building, and it was starting to take off. And Ty's like, "What can I do?" Well, me being poor communicator leading up to it, I never explained to Ty, "All right, this is how it's going to unfold. This is what we need help with." The rest of the staff knew, but my brand new Rockstar Millennial associate wanted to be a part. And I looked at him and I said, "Hey, we got it. Just go have some fun." That wasn't the answer the Rockstar Millennial wanted. The Rockstar Millennial wants to be a part. They want to be an active, contributing member, and I didn't do that for them. And so what I've learned over time is they want projects to lead, which means we have to give up some of our ego and give up some of what we take pride in and let them lead a project. And that doesn't come without building trust. And as Ty knows, I've steadily given those things to him, and it goes back to like projects of producer meetings. You know, one year I let him talk, and the next year I was, "Hey, you run it." And now he does his own producer meeting. We have 2 producer meetings, and now Ty does one on his complete own. 2 producer meetings a year. And that slide, remember, it says, you know, they're better than you. Ty's better at producer meetings than I am. He's good at it. So we give him those projects and he lead them. Anything to add on those things? Sorry, I kind of.
No, that's good.
Now, all generations have to realize it's a trust thing. If you're a millennial in the room and the extra boomer doesn't trust you to lead that because all their clients are involved, because I'm going to put Dr. Ty up in front of 100 people, you know, we got to trust that you're going to kick ass up there in front of 100 of our clients. And that's a responsibility. And he gets it, and he's good at it. And then you just continue to build that trust and continue to give bigger projects and let them run. If you give millennials projects, rockstar millennial projects lead, I will promise you at least 50% of the time they'll do it better than you. This whole conference, this whole thing, yeah, I lead it with the vision and the thoughts. The execution of this, they're sitting right here, and every single one of them is a millennial. Every one of them, aren't you, Rachel? And she's a rockstar millennial. Haley, Charlotte, Josh, they're all rockstar millennials. Utilize their knowledge of technology. I think that one's fairly self-explanatory because we're going to move on to the next one. Mind their resourcefulness. We've already talked about that. They're extremely resourceful in terms of hopping on that phone, that computer, and finding out information. Finding out, gaining more knowledge, whatever it might be in a product or a disease or anything. Use of social media to leverage business opportunities. Do you have any thoughts on that one?
I'm as a millennial, I'm terrible at social media. I'm god awful. But you know, we've got there's a couple gals that some of our technicians that are really good about it, and there's a lot of vet clinics out there that have Instagram and Facebook, and they get a lot of followers, and it's an opportunity to show your clients what you're doing and keep them interested in what you're doing. And it's been a big part of our practice. And, if you let them kind of take those things, or let us, kind of guide those, I think you'd be amazed at what it do for your practice. It's the world we live in. Everything's social media, but it can be a positive thing if you let it. So coach them on some of those specifics, but let them take it. Let them post on Facebook. Start a clinic Facebook if you haven't, or a clinic Instagram. People love to see that stuff. They love to see abscesses and surgeries, and they will watch it all day long. It's a good thing.
Yeah, we have one lady that started our Instagram page, and she'd never done any of that for us. We've had a Facebook page for, I don't know, long time. And she started an Instagram page, and all of a sudden we're looking at the photos, looking at it, she's doing a pretty good job. So she's passionate about it. She wanted to do it. Here, it's your baby. You're in charge. Make it better. And those people that are around you in your facility, give them a shot. Give them some guardrails. Give them some expectations. And make them damn high. And I promise you, if they're pretty good, they'll meet them. Cost-saving strategies. Ty and I, now that Ty is a partner, we talk about money and buying things, etc. And so part of my discussion with anybody is, especially in rural America, which I think most of us are, is we got to be careful on this one. To me, we can always get online and probably find something cheaper, but I'm a buy local guy. I was raised by a guy that my dad was always buy local. You got to buy local. You got to buy local. So it's engraved in my brain. And of course, as we all know, as business owners in a small town, is you have other business owners that support you, and you probably ought to support them back. So if you're a millennial that doesn't agree with that, I would suggest if you're going to own a business, you better think about that. Because if you're in small town America, you need to be supporting your people supporting you. And if you're not, they're going to remember. And they may no longer support you. So, as I say, if you're going to ask a bold question, be ready for a bold answer. And if you're going to own a practice, being a business owner in this world today, and it's a town less than 20,000, 30, 40,000 people, and you're going to get on your computer or phone and you're going to save all this money out of town, be ready for those people to not support you, because I promise you, I would not grace your door. That's just how it works. Isn't that right, Jason? You got anything on that? Okay, respecting the process. We've talked about that. You have to respect the process. We must provide these folks access to the development opportunities. Penalty-free, flexible work, challenging work opportunities. They want to be challenged. Millennials have a deep desire to be challenged. Rockstar millennials, I should say, have a deep desire to be challenged. Transparent paths and timeline to advancement. So as Ty mentioned earlier, we were working through this process of him partnering in, but we were working on this advancement and timeline really ultimately even prior to that. But there was a point in time that got pretty tense between us on this partnership and I wasn't clear enough in the timeline or what this thing looked like or a transparent path and what it would look like, not only just now partnering in, but what's the next 2 to 3 to 5 to 10 years look like. And I'd actually developed a 10-year plan that I presented to the clinic, a year ago, 2 years ago? But I wasn't specific enough for other potential partners or future partnership or Dr. Ty. And we brought in Dr. Reynolds Fair out of Ashland, and he helped guide us through this process. And what Ty and I learned from it, that Randall brought to the table for us, and before he got here, he told me, Nels, what you have to focus on is the common end goal. And what was our common end goal? It was getting Ty partnered in. And letting him be a partner, being an active partner, and make everything work. And when he did that, we put things on paper, right? Talk about that if you want.
Yeah, it just, from my standpoint or from our standpoint, if we don't have that clear vision in the future, keep in mind, in my situation or anyone else is buying in, you're essentially, I put myself, or you're putting yourself in the passenger seat. And for someone who, for some of us, that's more uncomfortable as it would be for any business owner. And so when you put yourself in that passenger seat, I need a lot of explanation, and I need to be able to see out the windshield a long way because I'm not driving.
I like that analogy.
So you got to think about it from that standpoint. You got to just be really clear. This is what it looks like. This is why. Because again, I'm not the type. I don't want to just sit in the passenger seat and let someone take the wheel and let me know when they get there. I guess that's just not me. And so if you're that type of person, just make sure they know up front. And just be respectful about it.
And as he knows, that's very tough. And so if you're an extra boomer owner in this room and you've got some rockstar millennials, this part right here, transparent paths and timelines to advancement, that's what they want. They want to know. And they want it on paper. For the millennials to understand, what you need to understand, for an extra boomer to put that on paper, that's predicting your future. And I dare you to do that. I dare you to put your next 10 years on paper in the business that you've not built, that you're asking that extra boomer to do. Because that's tough. It takes, you set your ego at the door and you start thinking about people other than you. It's not about you, and you've got to put it on paper for them. And so, as I've told Ty, I can do this, but you got to be ready to do the same. You want to buy into this thing. If you're a millennial and you want to buy into this, and you want your transparent path to advancement on there, are you going to do the same thing for the next person that wants to partner in? Are you willing to do that? So, we've got to do that as extras and boomers, but I want millennials to understand, and as Ty knows, that is very brutal to do. It's tough to do, but it has to happen if you've got rockstar millennials.